Welcome back to the Manor Entropians. Julian McBain here, and tonight we are hunting Berrycled in an effort to work on this Rank 24 challenge for a little bit. And I wanted to talk about how Entropia is an economic non-simulation. So Entropia has this interesting thing about it where it is... It's the perfect simulated economy that happens to not be simulated. And it's a really strange notion, because you'd expect it to be, you know, if it's in a video game, it's simulated, except we have the unique situation where Entropia Universe uses real money in order to transact business. And so in reality, that means that it's not a simulated economy, it's an actual economy. And it's a digital economy. And so I find it very, they updated the way the lasers look. That looks really cool. Sorry, squirrel. So because of that, we've created this almost perfect economics model from the perspective of what economists would likely consider to be laissez-faire, and I don't think that's technically correct. I mean, okay, in the strictest form of the term, yes, that is technically correct, because anyone can sell any possible thing for whatever price they want that the market is willing to buy. Oh shit, I wasn't wearing armor. Oh my god. Did not even realize. I've been sweating mobs, so of course I'm not wearing armor. Come on. Come on. I'm a dope. Was not paying attention. Ouch. Okay, good. It looks like the ghost armor is actually implementing right away. Oops. So okay, so we have this economic this digital economy, and it functions really well. And yeah, you get some of the problems with an unregulated economy. You've got your scam artists, and MindArc specifically states they aren't going to do anything about them. And I think that's probably from a liability perspective, because MindArc has no way to prove whether or not someone actually scammed you out of something without going through a whole bunch of private messages, and then that would take, that would take a lot of personnel, and the game would probably be prohibitively expensive for us to play. And so they simply say, buyer beware. And realistically, that's how the real economy works anyway. Because there are multitudes of snake oil salesmen and things like that out there. And so I think it's very interesting that, we've created a game where, because there's real money consequences, we have to use real common sense when handling economic, transactions. And I think that's unique to this particular game. Although I'm sure that, players will be reasonably careful when conducting business in games that use just an in-game currency, as opposed to a real, a currency that's actually pegged to something and actually can be traded out and withdrawn from the game. If you can just run out and kill mobs and earn more gold, you're going to be a lot less careful with your gold. And if that were true of PED, then, well, what would end up happening is it would, you'd have a lot of players losing money at a far greater extent than they actually do. Which I think also kind of plays into an interesting fact of the game itself, and that's the player base of Entropia Universe are relatively, or actually not even relatively, they're incredibly honest. From a a macro perspective. You've got your scam artists, and you've got your assholes, and you've got your bad actors. But from a macro perspective, it is you are much more likely to run into honest players in this game, even if they're players who would perhaps not be so honest in another game. And I think it's because they know that if they screw someone out of something in this game and they take real money for it, then at some point it's probably going to happen to them. And I mean, you can believe in karma or whatever, and maybe you don't believe in it at all, but it is, from what I can tell, that is the best way I can tell. That's why people treat life in the game, on the platform of Entropia Universe, far more like real life than they do any other video game. And so, and I mean, there was a time back in the early days, and you can hear Serial Overdrive talk about this on some of his videos, and if you go back to his early stuff, you'll really see it. Back when Port Atlantis was the main trade port, not Twin Peaks. There was absolutely no guidance. So, traders would come in, they'd go to Twin Peaks, they'd buy stuff, they'd go to Port Atlantis, they'd sell stuff, they'd buy stuff at Port Atlantis and bring it to Twin Peaks. And they could mark it up for whatever they wanted. And, you go to a city and animal muscle oil might be at 105, and then you move over to a different city and it's at, 112% markup. And that would make sense from a technical perspective, because back then there weren't really, if there weren't any aerial vehicles, from what I understand, all you had there might have even been ground vehicles. You might have had to hoof it. And if that's the case, that markup was earned. That's a huge amount of time out of someone's day. Imagine trying to run from Port Atlantis all the way to Twin Peaks, or even driving takes a long time. It takes a long time to fly there. Now imagine having to do it in a freaking Explorer. My brilliant neon... Oh, they fixed it. Okay, we got to see what it looks like. It's not even red anymore. No shit. Hey! And it's got a Jolly Roger on it. That's cool. Okay, Mindark. I'll accept the hilarious neon pink for 4 days to get this skin. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Whoops. Let's pick that sucker back up. Very cool. Very cool. So anyway, sorry, squirrel. So okay, we've got this economic digital economy, and for a long time there was absolutely no guidance on it, and then Mindark introduced the markup system. And I think the markup system was very smart. And I know a lot of people kind of poo-poo it. That's odd. Maybe it's because of how much... Did the markup system get screwed up? Give me a second. This isn't populating today. That's not cool. Okay, here we go. It might be because of the PED value of those. That would be an update, because prior, it would just do the standard markup for the unit, not with that amount left on it. But anyway, so they introduced the markup system, and that tells you what the market value of it on the auction house is. And of course, you've got auction fees, but, it is what it is. And if you play around with it a little bit, you can figure out what it would be without fees. And it's going to be relatively, you're going to subtract like 50 PEC off of it or thereabouts, maybe a little more. But in the end, it's all going to work out. So like this B101, today it sold for 1,250% markup, which sounds huge, but it is kind of, except, the thing TTs for 8 PEC when it's full TT. That's not a huge amount of money. So even if it is that much, let me pull out a calculator here. 1250, no, it's 12.5 times 0.08. That's a PED. 1250 is a PED. So really, that's not very much. That means that's the minimum you can auction anything for. So, I mean, realistically, it's not a huge deal. And, you know, markup is the difference between a TT value and its sale price. The number of value and value of sales over a particular period provide the average markup for in PED. And they do averages, so if there's an outlier, it's not going to completely screw the system up. Which is good, because that's what you want. You want trends and averages. You do not want, you know, one random sale that's ridiculously high to screw up the markup system, because that can throw the market into just way out there. So okay, what can we do with this simulated, or not the simulated economy, because we've already established it's not simulated. What can we do with this digital economy? Because MindArc's even put things in here where we can, you know, set up arrangements for trading real items on the Entropia auction house, which is difficult, and I don't think anyone's ever used it, but you can do it, at least in theory. And I find that very interesting, because that means this is the first time you can legitimately trade real-world items in a video game without it technically being against terms of service. To my knowledge, every other game, it's technically against terms of service to sell in the game. And I mean, I'm sure it's poorly enforced in a lot of cases, as long as you're not spamming chat, but and if no one reports it, no one's going to care. But they still put that provision in there, whereas MindArc's like, yeah, come to our auction house and sell real-world items for PED. And that's very interesting. It's a very unique part of their business model. And if Entropia Universe spreads the way it potentially could spread, and I think it definitely could spread in that manner, then it will become a trading hub for all kinds of people. And of course, you got all of the concerns over, you know, trading over a digital platform. Global, we're looking at 26, 25. So my math was a little off. It's like 10 o'clock at night, sue me. So yeah, we've got this awesome digital economy, and it works. It really works. Frankly, it works better than our actual economy, because while there's no regulation on it, because everyone has access to the average market, it self-regulates. Think about that for a minute. Because we all have access to the same information, it essentially self-regulates just the way the modern stock market does. And so you don't have a lot of those wild ups and downs, because everyone has access to the information. And so they're able to trade with each other on level playing grounds, and they're able to say, well, you know, that B101 trades on the auction house for a huge amount of markup, but over half that markup ends up going to the auction house, not to the player who's actually doing it. So instead of giving you a PED for it outside of the auction house, maybe I'll give you 55 PEC for it. That gives you a little more profit than you would have made on the auction house, and it means that it's cheaper for me than I would have bought it on the auction house, so we actually both win. And that works for a lot of other items as well. And I think it's remarkable what MindArc has managed to accomplish with that, because if you go to any other video game, go to any World of Warcraft server that's been around for any length of time, and you're going to find a wildly inflated economy, especially if there's players playing endgame content on that server. And so the way that, Minarch's like, okay, well, we can't have that because, we want players to play, and players have to put real money in, and so we're not going to allow it get so bad that there's going to be a huge barrier for entry for new players. And so that's why the markup tool exists, or at least I think that's why the markup tool exists. Even if that's not the reason they put it into the game, that's the effect it has, and we all benefit from it. Look at the moons, they're beautiful. Squirrel. And so I thought that was a really incredible concept, and I wanted to share that with you, because if I was asked what is the perfect model for an economy, I would point at Entropia universe, specifically Calypso, because Calypso is the most well-developed economy in the game, and other places desperately need players to be able to trade there. And as someone who, does plenty of hunting on Cyrene and has been known to smuggle his stuff back to Calypso to trade, I know I'm part of the guilty party in that. But at the same time, there's no point in having sellers if you don't have buyers. And of course, in order to attract buyers, you have to have sellers, and that's kind of the rub on any economic system, but especially on a digital economic system that relies on real money. And so it's really interesting. And then Calypso, Mindarch went a step further and introduced the exchange, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's a stock exchange. It's not a stock exchange because you're not actually trading securities by by the technical definition of any country, to my knowledge, unless you yourself are a stockbroker, and then it falls under it because stupid rules. But they've introduced this system, and I have the feeling we're going to see a lot more things traded on the Entropia exchange in the future. And no, I'm not trying to show off my deeds or anything. I have just managed to screw up this. Is it going to go away? Can it go away? It's really annoying. Huh. No, it's not going away. It's been one of those days, really. Like, seriously. I can't even move the damn thing. So yeah, I needed to kind of express that, because, and I've written about it. I haven't put the primer out that I was writing, and I'm sorry guys, we're just gonna have to deal with that progress bar, because I don't really have the ability to edit video in any meaningful way. But anyway, I've written about how it's an economic non-simulation. It's an actual digital economy in an enclosed space, and it works. And I think that if there aren't economists in this game studying how the economy works, we're doing humans a disservice if there aren't economists actually studying this. Because good luck trying to break this economy. I mean, you could do it, I'm sure, but you'd have a hell of a time, and you'd have to deliberately and over a long period of time deliberately cause problems for it, and you'd have to have people working with you to do it. I mean, that's what happened to the sweat market, because people went out of their way to devalue sweat, and it took a large number of people coordinating over a long period of time to do that, which is why sweat went from 10 pet a 1,000 to less than 1 pet a 1,000 if you're selling it to resellers, which is just, it's honestly a disservice to new players. It really is. I mean, there is a supply and demand issue there too. There's a relatively flush amount of sweat in the economy, and they keep reducing the need. Mindarch keeps adjusting things so the actual demand for sweat goes down. But at the same time, um, if the sweaters would actually like refuse to sell sweat underneath a certain amount and just be like, nope, we're drawing the line here. I refuse to sell for less than this. No other sweater is going to... They basically have to form a cartel. They would basically have to form a cartel. And that's what the traders have basically become when it comes to sweat. And I'm not trying to... I'm not using cartel in the Mexican drug lord sense. I'm talking in the technical sense. So like OPEC is a cartel. And the basic purpose of a cartel is to protect prices. And in most jurisdictions, a cartel is technically illegal unless it is endorsed by the government. So like OPEC being a cartel of nations is of course legal because, well, the governments are the cartel. But like oh, what the heck is the name of that? This is it the Sinaloa cartel, which is a drug cartel, so it's actually illegal more because it's a drug cartel than it is anything. That's obviously illegal. And then like when I lived in another state, and in that particular city, gas prices were artificially inflated by the owners of the gas stations, not the chain gas stations, but the privately owned ones. And one of the chains actually had a window shattered by a brick when they tried to lower their prices. And so the gas in the area was run by a cartel. That's basically the definition of it. And so that was interesting. It took me a while, and I started calling them out on it, and not like loudly, but you know, I'd be talking to people and I'd be like, yeah, the gas cartel's a real issue here. And people would be like, oh yeah, well, I guess that is technically the case, but the city endorses it, so it's okay. And so it was, from a macro perspective, it was likely an illegal cartel, but the city endorsed it, so no one was going to do anything. And I'm not bitching about, you know, the internal politics of a city I used to live in, but it's a good example. No. Don't go chasing off after someone when there's something hitting you right next to you. So yeah, if you're an economist that just happened upon this video, do some research and like actually form an avatar and get through the starter zone just to do a study on it. Seriously. This is getting really irritating. Thankfully this video is almost over. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Apparently I hit a button too many times and now it won't go away. Let me see if this helps. Of course not. That's fine. So yeah, I think I'll keyword this to try to attract some economists to it, because I think it would be really interesting to hear their opinions on the matter. You know, being someone who, like, economics is one of my favorite things to study. I haven't done it in a while, but I've been focused on psychology, if you hadn't been able to tell. But just as I've been playing this, I've just been like, wow, this is something that is the perfect model for an economy that actually works with very little variation. And so that just blew my mind. And so I really wanted to share kind of the nitty gritty of it. And I don't necessarily think I did a great job, but I think all of the pieces are there. And you know, as we move forward, as more think pieces come out, I'm going to move more into some... I need to work on some more tutorializing things, how-tos. And I'm aware of that. I'm going to be looking for, you know, what problems people have that I can solve. And starting to answer questions. But I also want to keep doing these think pieces because I think that people enjoy them. I've noticed that there's a lot of engagement on the think pieces. and I think it's a niche that isn't really filled, because there's a lot to this game, because it triggers in our brains a lot of functions that we don't get to exercise on a regular basis, or we're not able to exercise anywhere else. And I think that's really interesting. So, okay guys, sorry for the short video, but it's been a day, so we will we'll end it there and pick it up next time. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Guys, I really appreciate all the support. Again, sorry about the stupid please wait bar in the middle of the screen. You all have a wonderful day.